Okay. So I'm going to start in my pan here. I'm going to start with the rice pilaf. So I'm just going to melt down my butter. I don't want it scorching hot, but I do want it to be melted. I'm going to go ahead and grab the lid from my pan too. Actually, it's right there. Yep. This one. Sorry. Either a matching lid or some foil will work. You just need something to be able to cover your pan. All right, so we're going to start melting down this butter. I have 1/3 of a cup here. Okay. And then once this butter melts down, we are going to start browning our rice. Okay. And I'm just pressing it into the pan just to get it to melt a little bit faster. All right, there we are. All right, so we're just gonna let it come up to a sizzle there. And I'm going to add in the orzo first. And I'm just gonna let that brown up in the butter for a couple minutes. Really just going based on color, not so much time. All right, so I'm gonna lay this nice and flat now that it's coated in that butter. I'm just gonna let that kind of sizzle up and brown, give it a stir here and there. All right, I have some fresh stock left over from last week, so I'm gonna be using that. You guys have some chicken base that you can use. So just measure out your water. You need 2 2/3 cup, and then just dissolve some of that chicken base into that water to create your chicken stock. If you have fresh stock left over, you're more than welcome to use that. All right, so I am starting to develop a light golden brown color on my orzo here. So I'm now going to add in my long grain rice. And then again, I'm just gonna let that continue to brown. So you can see that browning that happens with that orzo. Like I said, we didn't go so much based on time, but color, okay? So now I'm gonna add in that long green rice, and again, let that continue to toast up. All right, so while this toasts, I'm gonna go ahead and grab my chicken stock. I had brought it up to a simmer on a separate burner, so I'm gonna go ahead and grab that. All right. All right, and you can see it sizzling away there. That's what we want. All right, that's gonna help us develop that color on there. Again, go based on that color, not necessarily time. All right, so we are good. I do see some browning happens. I'm gonna turn down my heat while I added my stock. Now I'm gonna add salt. This is the only time that you're gonna have to season your rice, the inside of the rice. So you wanna add a generous amount of salt to that. Okay, my heat keeps turning off. I'm gonna give that a stir. All right, make sure that you salt, even if you're using just water, if you're using chicken stock, salt in that beginning. This is the only time you have to season that inside of the rice. You can always add seasoning outside, but trust me, this makes a huge difference. All right. So we are just going to bring this up to a boil. I am then going to cover it, turn it down on a low heat, and let it continue to simmer for about 20 minutes. All right. So there it is. So I'm going to cover it. I'm going to transfer it over to my stove, and then I'm going to set a timer for 20 minutes. All right, so while my rice is simmering away, I'm going to start on my roasted carrots. All right, so here I have my carrots already peeled, and I want some nice big pieces, so I'm going to do our oblique cut here. I'm continuing to just turn it. Make sure those cuts stay nice and even. All right. All right, sorry, I went ahead and shut my door. Okay. And these ones we're gonna keep simple as far as seasoning goes. I'm just gonna do some oil, salt, and pepper. Sometimes less is more. You don't need to get too crazy with spices all the time. And last carrot here. All right, there we are. So there's the rest of the carrot. So I'm gonna grab my sheet tray. There's some gum on there. I'm gonna drizzle with oil. I'm gonna do a generous amount of oil, not too much so it's swimming in it, but a generous amount so it's gonna coat it. And salt it and pepper. And then we're just going to toss these all around, nice and seasoned. And then we're just gonna space them out. And then they're gonna go right into the oven. I have my oven preheated to 425. When you're roasting, you wanna do it on a high heat, so you get that caramelization that's happening in that oven. If it's too low of a heat, you're really just gonna end up steaming them. And I want a good amount of color on here, okay? So I'm gonna wash my hands, get that oil off. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and drop these in my oven. All right, so carrots are now in the oven. I set a timer for about 15 minutes. I might check it a little bit sooner, but just so I don't forget about it, I wanted to get that timer set. So what we're looking for doneness of those carrots is we should be able to pierce it with a fork or a small knife, and it should come out cleanly. If you stab it and it kind of holds on to that carrot, just let it roast a little bit more, okay? If it appears to be darkening a little bit too much, you can drop your heat to 400, all right? So my rice is working, my carrots are in the oven. I am now going to start our caramelized cauliflower. All right, so here I am working with a cast iron skillet. All right, and the only reason why I'm using this one is because I can put it in the oven. Okay, so if you have another pan, by all means, you're more than welcome to use that one. All right, so I'm going to trim up the cauliflower. All right, here I have half the cauliflower. I'm going to cut out the stem. Okay, just like that. And I'm going to break it up into 2-inch florets. So I'm just going to kind of cut it off here, and then I'll cut it into smaller pieces. Okay. All right. So I'm going for 2-inch florets there. Okay, break that all up. If you need to, you can trim up some of that stem. All right. So cauliflower is trimmed up. They're nice and consistent in size. I have a few little small stragglers. That's okay. They can go in there. All right. So now what we're going to do, get my burner on. All right. And I'm going to add some oil. Okay. I'm going to let that heat up, and then I'm going to add in our cauliflower. I'm just going to cut up some butter here. All right. The oil's nice and loose. I'm going to add in that cauliflower. And then I'm just going to kind of toss it in that oil that's in there, and then I'm going to let it sit for a little bit. So we are caramelizing this. So in order to caramelize, we're actually going to end up adding some sugar to it. And this is actually going to start on the burner, and then we're going to finish it in the oven. Okay, so that's why I was working with that cast iron here. All right, so I just kind of got it tossed in that oil. Kind of lay it down. Okay. Just like that. All right. I'm going to let that sit. I'm going to add in my butter. I'm just going to break it up into smaller pieces. Okay. And then I'm going to let that butter melt. Okay. All right, Now we're going to add in our sugar. Put all around. And our salt. Our salt is not only going to add a little bit of saltiness to it, but it's actually going to make it a little bit sweeter as well. All right, so now we're going to toss that all together. And then we are going to put it in the oven. Okay. So just making sure nice and coated. All right. So again, I'm going to lay down flat, make sure it's in a nice even layer. I don't have any overlapping. All right, the stems are overlapping, that's not a big deal, but the florets themselves, I want those to lay flat. Okay. All right. Okay. So now I'm going to go pop this in my oven. All right, so I have all three items done. What I'm going to do is, because sugar melts down when it comes out of the oven, so here I have my cauliflower. I am going to reduce down my syrup now. So my cauliflower is nice and cooked through. So I'll show you. So if I pierce it, you see it goes through cleanly. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to caramelize those sugars. And this part really won't take that long. All right, so let me go grab my spatula real quick while that heats up. And you can hear it starting to sizzle. So this one, I have it on high heat. So after it softens, comes out of the oven, we're going to let it continue to caramelize and brown up. All right, so I'm going to let that sit. All right, I have my rice in here as well. So what we're doing here is we're just reducing down that syrup. We're gaining some color as well. And it's going to develop a nuttier flavor. So the longer sugars caramelize, the nuttier of a flavor you're going to get. All right, so if you were to have tasted it right now, it's going to taste sweet, but you're not going to get that caramelization flavor that you will by reducing it. All right, so I'm going to let that continue to work. I'll pour my rice here. All right, so I haven't opened it up yet. After the 20 minutes, I turned off the heat. I let it continue to sit for about 5 minutes. All right, so I'm going to lift it up. All right, and now I'm going to just kind of fluff it up. All right, so working from underneath, and it should absorb all of that liquid. All right, so if I were to tilt it, there should be no liquid coming out here. All right, so fluff it all the way. You can see how beautiful that is. Nice fluffy rice. I'll give a close-up on that as well. I'm going to give it a taste. That's perfect. All right. Oh, sorry, got tangled there. So you can see that beautiful, nice fluffy rice has a nice golden brown tint to it, and that's just from that toasting that we did in the beginning. All right, I'm gonna come back here to my cauliflower. This is still starting to caramelize. Letting that continue to work. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and let this cauliflower continue. I'm gonna set my rice aside and I'm gonna show you guys what I got out of that carrot. All right, so here is my roasted carrot. All right, so you can see that nice caramelization that happened. I did rotate them after 15 minutes and then I let them go for about another 5 to 6 minutes. So you should see that nice caramelization. It's not burnt. That's just the sugars caramelizing from the heat in the oven and the sugars that are naturally occurring in those carrots. Okay, that's what we want. I'm gonna go ahead and give one a taste. Just by roasting them, it brings out a lot of the sweetness. So good. All right. So you guys see that light brown caramelization that's happening in there? That's what we want. So these are just about finished here. I'm just going to keep rotating them. Okay. And this one I'm going to have to wait a few minutes to taste on, all right? Never taste hot sugar straight out of the pan. All right, that is a disaster. I just wanted to set that a little bit. I feel like sometimes the sun prevents you from seeing very well. So, and you can see that light golden brown that's happening there. All right, so these are ready now. I'm gonna turn off my heat. Give you a close up there. Did you see that light golden brown that's happening there? All right, that's what we want. All right, nice light golden brown. If you develop a little bit deeper of a color, that's okay. Just watch that sugar. We definitely do not want it to burn. And I had this on high heat the whole way through. And I wish it, I hope you guys can see that on camera. I sometimes feel like it doesn't appear very well. It's actually a really nice light golden brown. All right. There we go. And I'm going to taste that in a few minutes, but I need to wait because that is hot sugar.